Hello everyone. So today we're from group 6 and today we're going to present about macro and micro linguistics. Next slide please. Okay, before we continue our presentation, we will introduce our members first. My name is Ketut Ayudewi Puspadi and my identity number is 2212021 1093. And my friends?
My name is Lovena Lestari with student ID 22120210007 and my friend.
And me, my name is Pandini Putufania Dharmapatni, student ID 2212021.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about macro linguistics and micro linguistics. So in micro linguistics, we're going to talk about inter and intradisciplinary, and in micro linguistics, we talk about pure linguistics. Next slide, please. Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about macrolinguistics. So what is macrolinguistics? Macrolinguistics is a branch of linguistics that studies language extensively. Context refers to language as complex. Macrolinguistics studies the external structure or of language in general. The parts of macrolinguistics are first interdisciplinary and second intradisciplinary. Next slide. Okay, so the first is interdisciplinary linguistics. So what is interdisciplinary linguistics? So the definition of interdisciplinary linguistics is involving more than one branch of knowledge. And the parts of interdisciplinary, the first is sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, neurolinguistics, stylistic, cognitive linguistics, geographical linguistics, and computational linguistics. Next slide, please. Okay, this is we're going to present by my friends.
Well, thank you for this time given to me. I will continue the next material. For the first, sociolinguistic. Sociolinguistic, this primarily focus on the different uses of dialects and standard language. The more personal use of dialect and the possible correlation between dialects and social class. Term introduced into sociolinguistics by J. Fishman to denote a bundle of social situations characterized by specific settings and role relationship between interacting partners and typical themes. In sociolinguistics, language commodities are most closely related to interaction conditions. A descriptive approach assumes the systematically ordered heterogeneity of natural language. Such linguistic variants are characterized by spatial differences or dialects, class-specific verbal behavior, situational factors, example, context of formal versus informal conversation, stages of language acquisition, language contact, and origin and development of pidgin and Creole language. For example, of social linguistics, teachers can play a video clip of a dinner conversation and have learners compare the interaction, such as choice of topic and turn taking, with what they are familiar with. Next is psycholinguistic. Psycholinguistic or psych Psycholinguistic, the study of the psychological and neurobiological factors that enable humans to acquire, use, understand, and produce language. In psycholinguistics, the experimentally proved mechanism according to which certain reactions of subjects who were conditioned to particular object were also elicited by presenting the subject with the linguistic expression that denote the subject. The same is observed when words that are similar sound or sense are presented to subject. A reaction conditioned to a keyword is also triggered when synonymous expressions or that are similar in meaning are named. For example, of psycholinguistics, psycholinguists might choose to focus on how a baby develops their specific language to the exclusion of all others. The next is neurolinguistic. Neurolinguistic is study of the relationship between language and its neurological underpinnings. In learning language skills, find it useful to distinguish three general order of description in the study of language abilities: the linguistic, the psycholinguistic, and the neurolinguistic. In neurolinguistic, the brain system evaluates stimuli such as target language according to criteria such as novelty, relevance, coping skill, self-image, and social image. Neuralistic deals with how the structure of the brain affects language learning, how language is stored in which part of the brain, and how brain damage affect the ability to use language. And the example of the neurolinguistic. Now, I say the word wet dog. I want you to compare the image or video you have now with what you had before with the word dog. You will discover that the representation of the two terms is a bit different. You may not even be imagining the same kind of dog. You may be imagining two different dogs. Next is stylistic. Stylistic is applied linguistic is the study of how language is used in world situation and how it can be applied to practical problems. It involves using theoretical knowledge about language to solve real-world problem various fields such as education, language teaching, language policy, communication disorder, and translation. General stylistic deals with the whole range or repertoire of non-dialect types found in a language. Literary stylistic deals with variation in literature as a genre and styles of individual writers. Applied stylistic are often used to study context-specific language variants, especially in relation to the styles of literary and non-literary texts. For example, the language of advertising, politics, religion, individual authors, etc., or the language of a period in time, all are used distinctively and belong in a particular situation. And next, cognitive linguistics. A linguistic approach that emphasizes the interaction between language and cognition and focuses on language as a tool for organizing, processing, and communicating information. Topics covered in cognitive linguistics include structural features of language such as prototyping, metaphors, and image. In cognitive linguistic, aspects of cognition, including language structure and language processing, are related to aspects of the system in which they are embedded, the biology of organisms, including the brain and physical and social situation. For example, an English noun can be used in a mass non-grammatical context, as in there was a huge wig there, just a grace of car. Next is geographical linguistics. Although the terms dialectology and regional linguistics are more commonly used, linguistic and dialect studies on regional distribution are sometimes referred to collectively by this level. Geographical dialect is another name for local dialect. For example, toponymy is the study of place name, landscape. Ethnology, also known as ethnosiography, is a study of landscape ontologies and how they are expressed in language. And the last, computational linguistics. Computational linguistics is application of computer science to the analysis and understanding of written and spoken language. Scientific study of language from a computational point of view. Computational linguists are interested in natural language processing, both generation and understanding, and providing computational models for various kinds of linguistic phenomena. In computational linguistics, parsing shows that both strategies should be implemented for speech recognition. The same is true for human language processing, a grammatical formalism used in computational linguistics. It derives from certain phrase grammar and transformation and introduces certain types of rule. For example, of computational linguistics, computational linguistics is used in tools like instant machine translation, speech recognition system, text-to-speech synthesizers, interactive voice response system, search engines, text editors, and language instruction materials. And the next material will be continued by my friend.
Okay, thank you, Fania. So we will move to the second parts of macrolinguistics. The second part is intralinguistics, intradisciplinary linguistics. So what is intradisciplinary? Intradisciplinary branches of linguistics deal with the study of linguistics within its own discipline. So the parts of intradisciplinary are first, applied, second, theoretical, third, historical, fourth, descriptive, and the last, comparative. The next material will be presented by Fanny. Fanny, time is yours.
Well, thank you, Puspa, for the time. And you all have listened about part of interdisciplinary from Fania. And now I would like to continue the topic, and that is interdisciplinary. So the first is applied linguistic. Applied linguistic is the study of how language is used in real-world situations and how it can be applied to practical problems. It involves using theoretical knowledge about language to solve real-world problems in various fields, such as education, language teaching, language policy, communication disorders, and translation. Next slide. Well, example of applied linguistics is language teaching. Applied linguistics is commonly used in language teaching to develop effective language teaching methodologies and materials. For instance, language teachers use applied linguistics theories to design lesson plans and curriculums that meet the needs of their students. Next is theoretical linguistics. Theoretical linguistics is the study of the rules and principles that govern how language works. It seeks to understand the underlying structure of language and how it's acquired and used by the speakers. Theoretical linguistics aim to develop theories and models that explain how language works, and to test these theories is using empirical data. And this helps to deepen our understanding of language and to develop applications in areas such as language teaching, speech recognition, and machine translation. Overall, theoretical linguistics is a complex and diverse field that seeks to uncover the mysteries of human language and how it's used to communicate meaning. For instance, a theoretical linguist might investigate the questions of why sentences have the particular word order that they do. They might explore the idea that sentence structure is determined by a set of rules or principles that speakers unconsciously follow when constructing sentences. And they might also look at cross-linguistic differences in sentence structure, comparing how different languages handle things like word order, agreement, and tense. And through this kind of analysis, theoretical linguistics hope to develop a deeper understanding of how language works and to uncover the fundamental principles that underlie all human language. And this can have practical implications for fields like natural language processing and machine translation, as well as for language teaching and learning. Next slide, please. Next. Right, historical linguistic. Historical linguistic is a study of how languages change over time. It seeks to understand how languages evolve, how they are related to each other, and how they have influenced each other. And this field of linguistics examines the history and development of a language by analyzing the grammar, vocabulary, and sound changes. And historical linguistics also allows scholar to compare languages from different language families to determine their historical relationships. For instance, the similarities between Spanish and French can be traced back to their common ancestor, and that is Latin. And historical linguistics help us understand how different languages have influenced by each other over time and how they continue to do so today. Uh, one more example, next slide. Right. One more example is a theoretical linguist might investigate the questions of why sentences have the particular word order that they do. They might explore the idea that sentence structure is determined by a set of rules or principles that speakers unconsciously follow when constructing sentence. Next. Right, the next is comparative. Comparative linguistics, also known as comparative philology, and is the study of relationship between languages by comparing their grammar, vocabulary, and phonology. The goal of comparative linguistics is to establish the evolutionary history of language and to reconstruct their ancestor forms. Next. All right, the next is example of comparative linguistics. One example of comparative linguistics is Proto-Indo-European. Comparative linguistics played a crucial role in the discovery of the Proto-Indo-European language, which is the hypothetical common ancestor of the Indo-European language family. By comparing the grammar and vocabulary of different Indo-European language, linguists were able to reconstruct the sounds and structure of the ancient language. The next is descriptive linguistics. Well, descriptive linguistics is the study of language as it actually used by people in the real world. This includes analyzing the sounds, grammar, and vocabulary of language, as well as examining how language is used in different contexts and by different groups of people. Descriptive linguists are interested in understanding how languages work rather than prescribing rules or judgments about how language should be used. They use scientific methods to collect and analyze data about language, and they often compare and contrast different languages to identify patterns and commonalities. Well, overall, descriptive linguistics aims to provide a detailed and objective understanding of language, which can help us communicate more effectively and appreciate the richness and diversity of human language. The example of descriptive linguistic is a a descriptive linguist studying Mandarin Chinese, for example. They might investigate how the language is used in everyday conversation, such as in greetings or just a between native speakers and describe them, and paying attention to aspects like vocabulary, sentence structures, and the tone of voice. And through this analysis, the linguist might discover common conversational patterns or formula expressions used by the speakers, such as the use of particular greetings or questions in different contexts. And they might also examine how tone of voice is used to convey meaning or express emotions, such as the use of rising or falling tones to indicate surprise or interest. While by describing and understanding these patterns of language use, the linguist can provide insights into how Mandarin Chinese is actually used by its speakers in everyday life, and rather than simply prescribing rules or norms about how it should be used. And this can have practical applications for language learners as well as broader implications for our understanding of language and also communication. Well, that's all that I can explain to you, and I will give it back to Puspa.
All right, thank you, Fanny. So we already know that the branches of macrolinguistic, which is interdisciplinary and intradisciplinary. Let's move to microlinguistics. So what is microlinguistics? Microlinguistics is a branch of linguistics that studies language in narrow setting. In this position, we represent language as an independent natural phenomenon. Microlinguistics focuses on the study of the specific internal structure of language or the internal structure of language in general. In microlinguistics, we have one part, which is pure linguistics. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is pure linguistics? Pure linguistics is the scientific study of the linguistic structure and development of language in general or individual languages. The parts of pure linguistics are first, phonetics, second, phonology, third, morphology, fourth, semantics, sixth, pragmatics, and the last is syntax. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first part is phonetics. The definition of phonetics is the study of speech sounds. The three main areas of phonetics are first, articulatory phonetics, which deals with the way in which speech sounds are produced. Second, acoustic phonetic, which deals with the transmission of speech sounds through the ear. And the last, auditory phonetic, deals with how speech sounds are perceived by the listener. Next slide, please. Okay, phonology. Phonology is the study of language sound systems. Phonology is also concerned with the study of word-to-word relations in sentence. For example, give, and him may combine to give him, give him, give him. Next slide, please. Okay, morphology. Morphology is the study of the analysis of the representational systems of language in terms of the identification and distribution of morphemes or how they are combined into longer expressions known as morphology. In morphology, we studied about how to form words based on the existing patterns of the language, and we also studied the recognize the well-formed and ill from based on the principles of the language. So why in some sources they find that morphology is the study of word formation or the study of architecture of words. When the study about the history of words or the origins of words in called etymology, and the pursuit of lexicography is divided into two related disciplines. The first is practical lexicography, is the art or craft of compiling, writing, and editing dictionaries. And the second, theoretical lexicography, is the scholarly disciplinary of analyzing and describing the semantic relationship within the lexicon or vocabulary of a language and developing theoretical. Next slide, please. Okay, let's move to semantics. So semantics is the studies linguistics meaning, the meaning of words, phrase, and sentence. Next slide, please. So the example of semantics we have first, the word fly has more than one meaning in English. The word moth does not. Second, the word hide can mean the same things as conceal. And the last, the words sister and niece seem to be closer in meaning than the words sister and girl. Next slide, please. Okay, so pragmatics is an important element in sentence interpretation, is a body of language often referred to as pragmatics. Pragmatics deals with utterance by which we learn means specific events, the intentional acts of speakers. At times and place typically involve language. Next slide, please. Okay, the example of pragmatists. The same sentence may be used for two different purposes in two different contexts. For example, the speaker A, why don't you close the window? The speaker B, I let it open for Mimi, my cat. And another purpose of that sentence is the speaker A, why don't you close the window? And the speaker B, that's a good idea. I feel cool myself. That's the example of pragmatics. The next slide, please. Okay, syntax. The definition of syntax. Syntax is defined as the study that studies the syntactic arrangement or structure of words in sentence, phrase, and clauses. The smallest unit in phrase is a word. When two or more words are arranged in a certain way, the result is a syntactic structure. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the source that we have. The first source is an introduction to applied linguistics. The second book, Routledge Dictionary of Language and Linguistics. And the third book is an introduction to linguistics. And the last is a dictionary of linguistics and phonetics. Next slide, please. All right, I think that's all about our presentations today. Thank you for your attention and have a good day.